Sarah Clark believed her life was exactly how it was supposed to be. She had her circle of friends, her father's comfortable job, her mother who always kept the house immaculate, and her own carefully curated image at school. At 17, Sarah was known for her clothes, her social media posts, and her ability to make everything look effortless. She lived in a world where appearances mattered, and where every little detail had to shine brighter than the last. That December afternoon, she strutted through the crowded hallway of Lincoln High, her boots clicking against the floor as if the school itself was her runway. Hannah Collins, her closest friend and partner in gossip, was by her side, laughing at something shallow yet delivered with theatrical seriousness. "Tell me you saw her sweater," Hannah whispered loudly enough for a few others to hear. "It looks like her grandmother knitted it during a blackout." Total cry for help. Sarah smirked. She thrived on these little moments of power. High school, for her, was a chessboard, and she enjoyed moving people around with her words. She pretended not to notice the girl walking past them, tugging at the sleeves of that very sweater, cheeks burning red. "Don't stare too much," Sarah said, flipping her hair back. "It'll make her think we care." They both laughed, the sound bouncing off the lockers. Sarah knew deep down that Hannah's cruel streak sometimes went too far, but she rarely stopped her. After all, popularity came at a price, and silence was easier than standing against the crowd. As they pushed through the exit doors, Hannah leaned closer. "So, Paris, your dad promised, right? I need confirmation. If you bail on me, I'll die." Sarah's eyes lit up. Paris. The word itself carried magic. Her father had promised her the trip as a reward. A Christmas gift that would outshine every party, every shopping spree, every other girl's jealous whispers. "Of course," she said with a confident smile. "January. Fashion Week. It's happening." Hannah squealed, clapping her hands dramatically. "We'll take Paris by storm. Imagine the photos, the shows, the clothes. We'll never come back." Sarah's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Promises. Her father always meant well, but lately, he seemed distracted, burdened with responsibilities she didn't fully understand. Still, she brushed it off. Doubt had no place in her carefully painted world. That evening, as Sarah arrived home, she was greeted by the warm scent of cinnamon cookies and the faint sound of her brother Nathan humming off-key from the living room. He was only 12, but had the irritating habit of sneaking into her business. "Hey, princess," Nathan teased, peeking at her from behind a stack of comic books. "Don't call me that," Sarah snapped, tossing her coat on the couch. "I'm too old for that name. You'll always be Dad's princess." Nathan shot back, grinning. "Better get used to it." Sarah rolled her eyes and marched toward the kitchen, where she found her mother, Linda Clark, carefully setting out plates. Linda looked thinner than before, though Sarah barely registered it. What caught her attention was the sparkle of the Christmas lights reflecting off the window, casting warm glows across the room. "Don't forget," Linda said softly. "We need to start on the decorations this weekend. The party's next week." "I know, Mom," Sarah replied, distracted, scrolling through her phone. She was too busy checking likes on her recent post to notice how slowly her mother moved, how tired her eyes seemed. Minutes later, David Clark called from his study, his voice firm but not unkind. "Family meeting. Living room now." Sarah groaned. Family meetings usually meant one of two things: another lecture on responsibility, or her father changing the cell phone plan again. Either way, it was bound to be boring. She dragged herself to the couch, where her parents and Nathan were already waiting. David cleared his throat, his eyes heavy with unspoken weight. "There's something we need to tell you." Sarah crossed her arms, impatient. "What now? Please don't say we're switching carriers again." Her mother gave a weak smile, but her father didn't laugh. "It's not about that. It's about your mother. She's been undergoing chemotherapy." The words slammed into Sarah like a fist. She blinked, trying to process, but her mind immediately rejected the thought. "What? No, you're kidding." Linda reached for her daughter's hand, her touch fragile. "Sweetheart, I didn't want to worry you. But it's true. I've been in treatment for months." Sarah's phone slipped from her hand onto the carpet, forgotten. She felt her throat tighten, the world suddenly spinning too fast. This couldn't be happening. Not in her perfect world. Her father's voice cut through the silence. "She's strong, and the doctors are doing everything they can. But we need you, Sarah. We need you to step up." For the first time in her life, Sarah Clark realized that her carefully built image, her clothes, her friends, her plans for Paris meant nothing against the weight of those words. And though she wouldn't admit it out loud, a chill of fear gripped her heart, one that even her father's steady gaze couldn't erase. The silence in the living room lingered long after her father's words. Sarah sat frozen, staring at her mother as though seeing her for the first time. Linda's face was pale, framed by a scarf that now carried a meaning Sarah hadn't noticed before. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her daughter's, but her smile tried to reassure. "I thought you would have noticed," Linda whispered gently. "My hair. It's thinner. I thought maybe you'd figured it out." Sarah shook her head in disbelief. "No, I didn't. I thought you were just tired." David leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "We didn't want to burden you and Nate until we knew more. But the treatments are exhausting, and things are changing fast. That's why I've been home more lately. To help." Nathan shifted uneasily, looking down at his comic book now, lying closed on the table. "Are you gonna die, Mom?" Linda exhaled slowly. "We're all going to die someday, sweetheart. But I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. I'm fighting. That's what matters." Sarah's throat ached as she tried to form words. "But the Christmas party, the decorations, we always do it here." Her father's gaze sharpened, his tone steady but firm. "Sarah, listen to yourself. Your mother's health is far more important than any party." "I know," she blurted defensively. "I just meant, everyone's expecting it," and I thought Linda squeezed her hand. "Honey, the party doesn't matter. What matters is family. We might host it somewhere else this year. Hannah's family already offered." Sarah wanted to argue, but something in her mother's tired eyes stopped her. She felt a rush of guilt, the kind that gnawed at her chest. How could she have been so blind? The next day, Sarah walked through the halls of Lincoln High with a heaviness she'd never known. Conversations about outfits, crushes, and weekend plans floated around her, but none of it seemed to matter anymore. She pretended to laugh when Hannah made a cruel joke, but inside, her thoughts were miles away. That evening, Sarah's father drove her to the hospital. The sterile smell of antiseptic hit her as soon as she stepped inside, and the sight of her mother lying in a hospital bed broke through every wall of denial she'd built. Linda looked smaller, somehow, swallowed by the white sheets. "Hey, sweetheart," Linda said softly, reaching out. "Don't look so scared. I'm still me." Sarah forced a smile, sitting by her side. "You don't look like yourself. You look tired." "That's the medicine talking," Linda replied with a faint laugh. "But it's worth it if it keeps me here longer." Sarah glanced at her father, standing stiffly in the corner, arms crossed. He looked strong, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Sarah had never seen him like that. Hours passed in quiet conversations, interrupted only by the beeping of machines and the shuffle of nurses. Sarah found herself gripping her mother's hand tighter than she realized. She didn't want to let go, not even for a second. But when the doctor came in, speaking calmly about more procedures and recovery time, Sarah felt her chest tighten. It wasn't over. It wasn't even close. Later that night, overwhelmed, she slipped out of the hospital into the cold December air. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, melting as they touched her coat. She walked aimlessly, her boots crunching against the sidewalk. Her mind screamed with questions she couldn't answer. What if Mom doesn't get better? What if everything changes? What if Paris never happens? Lost in thought, Sarah turned a corner and found herself in front of a building she had never noticed before. A faded sign read, "Safe Haven, Shelter." The faint glow of Christmas lights framed the entrance. Inside, laughter and chatter spilled through the windows. Curiosity pulled her closer. She stepped into the warmth of the shelter, where volunteers moved quickly, serving food, carrying supplies, and greeting families. A woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense tone approached her. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" the woman asked. "I'm Ruthie Brown. You're new here?" Sarah stammered, unsure how to explain. "I was at the hospital. My mom's there. I couldn't stay anymore. It was too much." Ruthie studied her for a moment before nodding. "Well, you're safe here. And since you're here, you can help. We're short on hands tonight." Before Sarah could protest, Ruthie handed her an apron and led her toward the kitchen. The smell of soup filled the air, and children's laughter echoed from the dining area. Sarah hesitated, glancing at the room full of strangers. "Just serve," Ruthie instructed. "1 ladle per person. Half for the kids. That's how it works here." Sarah looked down at the ladle in her hand, her manicured nails gripping the handle awkwardly. She wasn't used to serving anyone but herself. Then a voice cut through her hesitation. "You're not very good at this, are you?" She turned to see a boy about her age, his hair messy, his grin sarcastic. He extended a hand mockingly. "Ben Thompson. But everyone here calls me Vinegar. You'll see why." Sarah frowned, unimpressed. "And what exactly are you doing here?" "Helping," he said with a shrug. "Unlike some people who look like they got lost on their way to the mall." She wanted to snap back, but before she could, a little girl tugged at her sleeve. The child's eyes were wide, but she said nothing, simply holding out a bowl. Sarah bent down slowly. "What's your name?" The girl remained silent, her expression unreadable. "That's Chloe," Ruthie explained gently from behind. "She doesn't talk. Hasn't in years." Sarah filled the bowl carefully and placed it back into the girl's small hands. For reasons she couldn't explain, her heart ached. And for the first time, Sarah Clark wondered if the perfect world she had clung to so tightly had been an illusion all along. The following afternoon, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen the night before. The hospital's sterile white walls still haunted her, and her mother's weak smile clung to her memory like a shadow she couldn't shake. But the image of the shelter was just as vivid. The noise, the smell of soup, the girl with silent eyes holding her bowl, Chloe. At school, Hannah chattered on about party themes and the perfect pair of ankle boots she was begging her father to buy. Sarah nodded along, but her thoughts drifted elsewhere. She felt disconnected, as though she was standing in the same hallway but breathing different air than everyone around her. When the final bell rang, Sarah didn't head home. Instead, she found herself walking back to the Safe Haven shelter. The December sky was already darkening, the street lamps flickering on as the cold bit at her cheeks. She pulled her coat tighter, almost turning back, but something urged her forward. Inside, the shelter buzzed with activity. Ruthie spotted her immediately, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. "Back again?" she asked. Sarah hesitated. "I don't even know why I'm here." "Yes, you do," Ruthie said kindly. "You came because you want to matter to someone. Grab an apron." Sarah slipped it on reluctantly. The kitchen was already busy, volunteers moving in quick rhythm. And of course, there was Ben leaning against the counter, smirking the moment he saw her. Well, Princess returned," he said. "Don't call me that," Sarah muttered. "What should I call you then? Miss Too Good for Dishes? Or maybe Lady Lost and Confused?" She glared at him. "How about Sarah?" Ben chuckled, tossing her a towel. "Fair enough. Sarah it is. Now, dry those plates before Ruthie sees you standing around looking useless." Sarah caught the towel awkwardly, nearly dropping it, which only fueled Ben's amusement. She hated how easily he got under her skin, but she forced herself to focus on the task. Minutes turned into an hour. The work was tedious, stacking bowls, wiping trays, carrying trays back and forth, but something about the rhythm kept her anchored. She wasn't thinking about Paris or about Hannah's gossip. She wasn't even obsessing over likes on her phone. She was simply there, present, surrounded by strangers who somehow seemed more real than the people she had known for years. As she carried a tray of cups into the dining hall, Sarah spotted Chloe again. The little girl sat at a corner table, doodling on a scrap of paper with a dull pencil. Sarah approached slowly, crouching beside her. "Hey," she said softly. "Remember me?" Chloe's big brown eyes lifted, unblinking. She didn't answer, but she didn't turn away either. Sarah peeked at the paper. It was a shaky drawing of a Christmas tree, though half the branches were missing. "That's really good," she said gently. "But maybe it needs a star at the top, don't you think?" Chloe glanced at her, then back at the paper. She carefully pressed the pencil above the tree, sketching a crooked star. Sarah smiled, warmth spreading in her chest. She wanted to ask more questions, but before she could, a voice called across the room. "Chloe, sweetheart," a woman said, hurrying over. Her face was tired, her clothes worn, but her eyes carried a tenderness Sarah recognized instantly. "Sorry if she's bothering you." "She's not," Sarah replied quickly. "She's really sweet." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Charlotte, Chloe's mom." Sarah shook it, realizing her grip was firmer than she expected. Charlotte's hands were rough, marked by years of work and struggle. "I'm Sarah," she said. "I was just helping with the dishes." Charlotte gave her a small, appreciative smile. "That's good. It means you're already braver than most girls your age." Chloe doesn't usually let people sit with her. Sarah's heart tugged. She looked back at the girl, who was now shading the tree with careful strokes. Something about Chloe's silence was louder than any scream Sarah had ever heard. That evening, as Sarah helped pack up leftovers, Ruthie clapped a hand on her shoulder. "You did well today." Sarah frowned. "I barely did anything." "That's where you're wrong," Ruthie said. "You showed up. And sometimes, showing up is everything." Ben appeared beside them, smirking as usual. "Don't inflate her ego too much, Ruthie. Next thing we know, she'll be running the place." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Please? Like I'd ever want to spend my life here." But even as she said it, she felt a strange pang in her chest. Because deep down, part of her already wanted to come back. When she left the shelter that night, the cold air bit at her cheeks again, but this time she felt something new. Something heavy yet strangely comforting. Her world was changing, and she couldn't stop it. The next day felt different from the start. Sarah woke up late, her head heavy from thoughts that had kept her restless all night. She replayed the image of Chloe's quiet stare, Charlotte's grateful handshake, and Ruthie's calm yet firm words. Somehow, they stuck with her more than Hannah's endless chatter about parties ever did. At breakfast, Nathan was chattering as usual, trying to get Sarah's attention. "Guess what? Mr. Benson let me redo my science project. Said it was the worst volcano he'd ever seen, but at least it didn't explode the classroom." Sarah barely looked up from her phone. "Congrats. You're officially less of a disaster." David Clark folded his newspaper with a sigh. "Sarah, I need you to listen. Your mother will need more rest this week. That means you're going to start helping around here. Laundry, dishes, keeping things organized." "Understood?" Sarah groaned. "Dad, I have plans." "I can't just plans change," David cut in firmly. "If you want Paris in January, you'll need to prove you can handle responsibility. Otherwise, the trip is off the table." Sarah froze. He couldn't mean that. Paris was her dream. She opened her mouth to protest, but her father's gaze told her there was no negotiating. That afternoon, she returned to the shelter, though this time it wasn't curiosity that pulled her, it was obligation. If her father was keeping score, she needed to show effort. Ruthie greeted her with her usual steady smile. "Back again? Good. We've got dishes piled higher than the Christmas tree in the lobby." Sarah tied the apron reluctantly, her manicured nails already dreading the scrubbing. She joined Ben at the sink, who looked positively delighted to see her. "Well, If it isn't Lady Clark, he said, handing her a dripping plate. Ready to face your destiny. My destiny is in Paris, not here, Sarah snapped, snatching the plate. Ben smirked. Funny. Paris doesn't have soup-stained bowls. You should be grateful for the practice. Sarah scrubbed harder than necessary, trying to drown out his sarcasm. But after the fifth dish, her arms already ached and her patience thinned. This is ridiculous. Why can't you get a dishwasher like normal people? Ben raised an eyebrow. Because some people here don't even have a home, let alone a dishwasher. Welcome to reality, princess. She flinched at the word, but didn't answer. For once, she couldn't. After the kitchen rush, Ruthie sent Sarah to the common area to help with the children. At first, she hovered awkwardly, uncertain what to do. The kids ran circles around her, their laughter echoing in the room. A little boy tugged at her sleeve, holding out a puzzle missing half its pieces. Can you play with me? He asked. Sarah knelt down, forcing a smile. Sure, but I'm terrible at puzzles. He grinned. Me too. Together, they tried fitting mismatched pieces, laughing at the absurd combinations they made. Sarah felt something strange loosen in her chest, a kind of warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. She wasn't just performing, or posing, or trying to be admired. She was simply there, sharing a moment with someone who didn't care about her clothes, her reputation, or her social media feed. Later, she spotted Chloe again. The girl was sitting alone, staring at a doll with tangled hair. Sarah hesitated, then walked over and sat beside her. Hey, she said gently. She looks like she needs a makeover. Chloe's eyes flickered toward her but stayed silent. Sarah picked up the doll, smoothing its messy hair with her fingers. My little brother once cut all the hair off my favorite doll. I cried for a week. But my mom said maybe she just needed a scarf instead of hair. She was right. Sometimes new things can be better. Chloe tilted her head, as if listening, then reached out to touch the doll's dress. Her lips parted, as though she wanted to say something, but no sound came. Sarah's breath caught. For a split second, she thought Chloe might speak. But then the girl simply pressed the doll back into Sarah's hands and looked away. Ruthie approached quietly. Don't be discouraged. That's more than she's done for most people. She's letting you in, little by little. Sarah nodded, her chest tightening. She had never realized how powerful silence could be. When she finally left the shelter that evening, Sarah felt exhausted, but not in the way shopping, trips, or parties drained her. This was different. This was the kind of tired that came from doing something real. Yet as she walked home under the falling snow, her phone buzzed with a message from Hannah. Hannah, where are you? Party prep disaster without you. Call me ASAP. Sarah sighed, sliding the phone back into her pocket. For the first time, she wasn't sure if Hannah's world was where she wanted to be anymore. Lincoln High buzzed with restless energy as the days ticked closer to Christmas break. Students traded candy canes, whispered about parties, and compared gift lists. But Sarah walked through the halls with a different kind of awareness. Her gaze flickering between faces she once ignored and new ones she couldn't stop noticing. It was Hannah who mentioned him first. That's Mike Anderson, she whispered as they passed the cafeteria. Transferred here last month. His family's dirt poor, but apparently he's cute enough to get away with it. Sarah followed Hannah's gaze. Mike stood by the vending machine, talking to a teacher. He wasn't dressed like the other boys. His jacket was worn, his jeans faded, but his posture carried an easy confidence. His hair fell across his forehead in careless waves, and when he laughed, it wasn't loud or forced. It was genuine. Not my type, Sarah said quickly, though she found herself watching a second too long. Hannah smirked. Sure, whatever you say that afternoon, Sarah's father reminded her again about responsibility. Straight to the shelter after school, he said, handing her bus fare. No excuses. Sarah wanted to protest, but she knew better. If Paris was still on the line, she couldn't risk pushing back. When she arrived at Safe Haven, The air smelled of fresh bread and simmering stew. Volunteers moved in rhythm, familiar faces now greeting her with nods. And there, at one of the tables, sat Mike Anderson. Sarah froze. "What is he doing here?" Ruthie answered matter-of-factly. "His family helps us sometimes. His sister too. Good people." Mike spotted her and waved casually. "Hey, Sarah, right?" She nodded stiffly, adjusting her apron. "Yeah, you're Mike," he smiled. "Thanks for the clarification." Before Sarah could think of a comeback, a small figure peeked out from behind him. It was a girl, maybe 8 years old, with the same eyes as Mike, but a nervous posture. She clutched a notebook to her chest like a shield. "This is Carly," Mike said gently. "My sister." Carly gave a shy nod but said nothing. Sarah realized with a jolt that the girl was the same one Hannah and her friends had teased last week in the hallway. The sweater, the awkward haircut, it all came back in a wave of shame. Mike lowered his voice. "It's been rough for her. New school, new faces. Some kids haven't been kind." Sarah swallowed hard, guilt pressing against her ribs. She couldn't admit the truth, not yet. Instead, she forced a smile at Carly. "Hi, I like your notebook. Do you draw?" Carly's eyes brightened just a little. She opened the cover to reveal pencil sketches of animals and trees. Delicate and surprisingly good. Sarah felt her chest tighten. "They're amazing," she said honestly. For a moment, Carly's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, but then she quickly ducked behind Mike again. As the evening wore on, Sarah found herself watching Mike interact with the others. He lifted heavy boxes without complaint, helped serve food with ease, and treated everyone from the oldest man to the youngest child with the same quiet respect. It was different from the boys at school, who cared more about showing off than about helping. At one point, Sarah found herself next to him at the serving table. "So," he said casually, ladling soup into bowls. "Do you do this a lot?" "Volunteering?" Sarah hesitated. "I just started." "Well," Mike said, glancing at her, "you're good at it." She laughed under her breath. "I've spilled soup twice. Still counts," he said with a grin. Before Sarah could reply, Ben appeared with his usual smirk. "Careful, Sarah. Don't melt the soup with all that smiling. People might think you're enjoying yourself." Mike chuckled, shaking his head. "Ignore him. He thinks sarcasm is a personality." "Hey," Ben protested. "Sarcasm is a lifestyle." Sarah rolled her eyes, but deep down, she felt something she hadn't in weeks. Lightness. That night, walking home, she thought about her mother in the hospital, about Chloe's silence, about Carly's fragile smile, and about Mike's quiet strength. For the first time, she wondered if maybe her father had been right. Maybe responsibility wasn't about chores or rules. Maybe it was about noticing the people around her, the ones she had overlooked for far too long. The week before Christmas arrived like a blur of cold mornings and long shadows, and Sarah felt suspended between two lives, one glittering with parties and plans, the other echoing with ladles and quiet conversations. At Lincoln High, Hannah dragged her down corridors, chattering about a night to remember, a Christmas bash at her house with twinkle lights, hot chocolate towers, and a playlist designed to keep everyone dancing until they forgot who they were. At the shelter, Ruthie's voice grounded everything. One ladle per person. A smile when possible, and a steady hand even when your heart trembles. "Promise you'll actually show up this time," Hannah said, clutching Sarah's sleeve as they stood by the bulletin board. "No disappearing to do." "Whatever it is you're doing." Sarah stared at her friend's perfectly lined eyes. "I'm not disappearing. I'm busy." "With what? Homework?" "You can copy mine." Hannah grinned like this solved everything. "It's not homework." Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm helping somewhere." "Helping?" Hannah laughed, as if the word didn't belong in their vocabulary. "Helping who?" "People," Sarah said, sharper than she meant to. "Look, I'll be at the party. I just have to go to Safe Haven first." "That's the shelter, isn't it?" Hannah's nose wrinkled. "Since when are you into charity, chic?" Sarah opened her mouth, then shut it. She didn't want to argue in a hallway full of listening ears. Since now, she said, and walked away before she could backpedal. At home, her mother's soft footsteps were slower than usual. Linda sat bundled on the couch with a blanket and a book she hadn't turned a page of in 20 minutes. Nathan narrated some ridiculous show under his breath and waved a pencil like a wand. David tidied the kitchen counter as if making small order could hold back the big disorder. Bus leaves at 4:20, he said without looking up. I put fare in your coat pocket. I know the route now, Sarah answered. Good, he said. Routine helps. He finally faced her, and she saw the unspoken question gathering behind his glasses. How are you, really? She nodded once, a quiet I'm trying, and his mouth softened. At Safe Haven, the door swung inward on a gust of warmth and cinnamon. Ruthie pointed Sarah toward the serving table. Ben lifted an eyebrow and flicked a clean bowl toward her with magician flair. You came back, he said, playfully suspicious. Was it my sparkling company? More like Ruthie's terrifying efficiency, Sarah said, catching the bowl. Now move. You're blocking the soup. They worked shoulder to shoulder, their rhythm imperfect, but real. A woman thanked Sarah twice, as if gratitude was a new language. A boy pretended his spoon was a submarine, until Sarah made it a rocket, and he almost smiled himself out of his chair. When a stack of trays slid at a dangerous angle, Ben caught them with one hand and announced, You owe me your firstborn, and Sarah snorted so loudly a toddler copied her sound, delighted. You're lighter today, Ruthie murmured when the first rush passed. Or braver. Hard to tell the difference. I spilled less, Sarah said. That too. From the corner of her eye, Sarah spotted Mike Anderson entering with a cardboard box in his arms. He set it on a table with an easy strength and flashed a quick smile when he noticed her. Hey, he said. Brought decorations. My family's been working on a park project. Got extras? What kind of extras? Ben asked, already nosing into the box. Garlands, paper stars. A string of lights that works if you talk nice to it. Mike looked back at Sarah. You coming to the party tonight? I heard Hannah's whole street is going to glow. I'll be late, Sarah said. Shelter closes at 8. Mike's gaze flicked over her apron, her wet sleeves, the damp curl near her temple. He nodded like that answer made perfect sense. Save me a dance, he said, half teasing, half not. I might trip you, she replied, surprised by the way her chest warmed. Then we go down together, he said, and moved off to help Ruthie string the paper stars. Later, when Sarah finally arrived at Hannah's house, the neighborhood did glowsicles glittering from rain gutters. Wreaths too big for any ordinary door, glitter dusting every possible surface. Music thumped through the walls. Hannah swept Sarah into a hug, then stepped back to give a theatrical once-over. You're still in your school jeans, she declared. Tragic, Sarah deadpanned. Alert, Vogue, you're impossible. But Hannah smiled, bumping her shoulder. Inside, the rooms spun with perfume and laughter. Sarah talked when she had to, laughed when she should. Yet her attention kept snagging on the small things. Like the way a girl's hand trembled when she peeled an orange. The way a boy glanced at the door every time it opened, as though waiting for someone who never came. She stood by the window for a moment and watched snow sift down in fine threads. Somewhere in that white hush, she could almost hear Chloe turning pages in a notebook she had never seen but could imagine. A voice behind her. So you found me after all. She turned. Mike, in a jacket that had seen better winters, hair damp with melting snow. He held out a hand awkward, sincere. She took it before she could think. They moved on the packed living room carpet like it was a dance floor. Like their steps had decided to speak first, so their mouths didn't have to. My sister's here, he said quietly. Carly. Sarah's stomach tightened. She's in the den. I told her you might say hi. He didn't add if you can, but she heard it anyway. Sarah found Carly by a bookshelf near the fireplace, curled into a chair with a sketchbook balanced on her knees. The heat flushed the girl's cheeks pink. Her pencil moved in small, determined strokes. Sarah sat on the nearby ottoman, careful to leave space. "That's beautiful," Sarah said softly. "A fox in snow." Carly nodded once without looking up. The pencil shaded the shadow beneath the fox with such tenderness that Sarah felt her throat ache. She wanted to confess the worst of herself, the hallway laughter, the indifference that had tasted so much like power, but she heard the party roar behind them and knew some words needed walls to hold them. Not here. Not with music tripping over every attempt at truth. "I was cruel once," Sarah said anyway, voice barely above the fire's crackle. "I'm sorry." Carly's pencil stopped. She lifted her head, eyes searching Sarah's face as if the apology were a color she needed to identify correctly. When she didn't look away, Sarah felt something shift, small, but fundamental. Hannah's laugh rang out from the other room, bright and hollow all at once. "You're not going to vanish again, are you?" she called, not bothering to hide the edge in her voice. "I'm here," Sarah called back, though even as she said it, she knew she was elsewhere. The awareness was a tiny splinter under her skin, a truth she couldn't ignore much longer. When she ducked into the hallway to catch her breath, her phone buzzed with her father's name. She almost didn't answer over the noise. "Hey, Dad." There was a pause, then David's measured voice, softer than usual. "When you get home, we need to talk." Her chest tightened, as if the phone weighed twice what it had a second ago. "His mom will talk when you're here," he said, and the line went quiet. She stood very still, the party a swirl of color and sound around her, and realized some nights are not built for pretending. They're built to break and reassemble what you think you know, and this one wasn't finished with her yet. David waited in the living room with the tree unplugged, the room hushed except for the furnace's steady hum. Linda dozed lightly on the couch, a scarf wrapped around her head like a cloud, one hand tucked under her cheek. Nathan had fallen asleep on the rug with his comic book tented over his face. Sarah closed the front door carefully. "What happened?" The whisper fell from her lips as if it belonged to a different girl. David looked at her for a long moment, then at the sleeping shape of his wife. "Your mother will need more time than we hoped. The doctors say the next few weeks are important." Sarah rubbed her throat. "Okay. Time we give her. We will," he said. "But I need you present." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "No more disappearances without saying where. No more parties before duties. You'll help at home. You'll help at the shelter. You'll be kind to your brother." He let the last one land like a pebble in a pond. "And in January, if you keep your commitment and your mother is stable, then Paris is still possible." Sarah stared at the unlit tree. The glass ornaments caught what little light there was and held it. "I can do it," she said. "I will." He nodded slowly, as if testing each word. "We start tomorrow. You'll take the bus to Safe Haven after school. Laundry before you go. Dinner with us after. Routine." She swallowed. Routine. The next morning, Routine wore a domestic mask. Detergent measured carefully. Towels sorted by someone who used to be careless. Linda sat at the kitchen table, offering gentle instructions when Sarah hesitated. Low heat, gentle spin, fold while warm. Simple, ordinary acts felt ceremonial now, each one a small vow. "Look at you," Linda murmured, a smile curved like a crescent moon. "When did you get so capable?" "When you needed me to," Sarah said, surprised by her own answer. At school, whispers snapped at her heels like playful dogs. Hannah's updates. The parties after Globot. Sarah moved through the day with a new focus. She wrote a note in her planner. Bus 14 to Maine. Transfer to 8. 2 stops to Safe Haven. The lines looked like a map out of the person she used to be. That afternoon, Ruthie met her with a nod that managed to feel like applause. Dishes first, then reading circle. Reading circle, Sarah echoed. Children's hour. Stories help the day make sense. Ruthie's smile tilted. For them and for us. The reading circle gathered in a patch of warm light near the windows. A dozen kids flopped onto beanbags or crossed their legs on the carpet. Charlotte hovered near the doorway, watchful but trusting. Chloe sat with a doll in her lap, eyes fixed on Sarah as if waiting to be convinced. Sarah picked up a battered book, then put it down. The printed words suddenly seemed too small, too impersonal. "Can I tell one instead?" she asked Ruthie. "Can you?" Ruthie's eyes sparkled. "Go on." Sarah tucked her hair behind her ear. Once upon a time, there was a princess who had everything a pony with a silly name. A closet stuffed with dresses. A room where every toy looked like it wanted to be photographed. People called her lucky, and they were right. Except for one detail no one noticed. Sometimes life was so loud she couldn't hear her own heart. One day she saw a rainbow that refused to fade. She stood at the window a long time and said nothing at all, because it was the first time she understood that not all beauty needs words. The children stilled, the kind of stillness that isn't quiet but rapt. Sarah glanced at Chloe, whose hand closed around the doll's skirt. A thin line formed between the girl's eyebrows. Concentration or wonder, or both. The princess tried to talk after that. Sarah continued, softer. But every sound felt wrong, like the noise would break the picture. So she started listening instead. And the more she listened, the more the world revealed itself. Footsteps that meant safe. Laughter that meant home. And a certain kind of silence that was really love, pretending to be air. When she finished, the room breathed again. A boy asked if the pony's silly name had a sequel. Another wanted a dragon. Chloe didn't speak, but she leaned closer, resting the doll against Sarah's knee for an instant before retrieving it, as if to say, "I hear you." "Lovely," Ruthie murmured. "You should write that down." "I will," Sarah said, and almost believed it. After story time, Charlotte approached with music in her eyes. "Chloe hasn't sat still like that in months." "She did all the work," Sarah answered. "I just cleared the air a little." Charlotte's gaze dipped to the doll. "She listens when it matters." Then, after a heartbeat, "We're trying to build new traditions. It's hard when you feel like you've always been guests in your own lives." Sarah's next words surprised her as much as they surprised Charlotte. "Come to dinner this Sunday. At our place." She swallowed. "My mom cooks like she's feeding a village. There'll be leftovers for a week." Charlotte's mouth parted. "I don't, please." Sarah steadied her voice. "I'd like you there. I think my family would too." She glanced at Chloe. "And we have a tree that looks better when someone small critiques it." Charlotte laughed, softly, an unpracticed sound. "If that's okay with your parents." "It is," Sarah said, and felt the truth catch up to the promise in real time. That evening, at home, Sarah set the table without being asked. Linda watched, tender pride tucked into the corners of her smile. David slid a roasting pan into the oven and bumped Sarah's shoulder as he passed. A wordless ICO. Nathan attempted origami napkins and created something that resembled a flock of flattened birds. "Company on Sunday," Sarah said, hand hovering over the nice plates. "2 guests, friends from school?" David asked. "Friends from life," Sarah said, and when Nathan raised an eyebrow like a tiny detective, she added, "You'll like them." Linda's eyes glimmered. Then it settled. In bed that night, the ceiling looked softer somehow, as if the house had exhaled. Sarah checked the time and thought of Charlotte's careful yes, Ruthie's approving nod, the children's open faces. She reached for her phone to message Hannah, to invite her into this new corner of her world, then stopped. Not yet. Some invitations needed timing, you could feel in your bones. Her phone buzzed anyway with a text from an unknown number. "It's Mike. Got your number from the sign-up sheet. Thanks for reading today. Carly drew a fox with a crown after we left. I think that was your princess." Sarah smiled in the dark, long enough for the smile to become a secret. And somewhere, that secret became a promise she hadn't fully understood it. Sunday arrived, carrying bright winter sunlight, like the sky itself wanted to dress up. The house filled with the smells of roasting turkey and cinnamon, the table linen pressed smooth, the good plates waiting like heavy moons. Nathan raced between kitchen and living room, announcing that he had fixed a string of lights twice and shocked himself only once. "Door in 5, David said, wiping his hands. "Everyone ready?" Linda tied a scarf low on her head and adjusted it with steady fingers. "As I'll ever be," she said, cheeks flushed. "Let's make it a good day." When Sarah opened the door, Charlotte stood on the porch with Chloe, mittened and bright-eyed. The girl clutched a small notebook to her chest as if it were part passport, part shield. Snow crusted the edges of their boots. "Welcome," Sarah said, suddenly shy in her own doorway. "Thank you for having us," Charlotte said, her posture both grateful and wary. A woman who had learned to expect kindness to be temporary. "Come in," Linda called warmly from the living room. "We've been waiting." Introductions went around the room like gentle dominoes. David shook Charlotte's hand with the respect you offer a partner, not a guest. Nathan tried to make Chloe laugh with an overly formal bow, and the presentation of a candy cane, like a sacred sword. She didn't laugh, but she didn't retreat either. Her gaze slid from Nathan to the tree, where ornaments winked like secrets. At the table, David bowed his head. For good company, for warm food, for the kind of days that stitched the year together, he said, "Amen." They ate. Conversation tiptoed at first, then found its stride. Charlotte admitted she once wanted to be a pianist. Linda confessed she always burned the first batch of cookies. Nathan regaled the room with a disastrous science experiment, and Chloe watched him as if he were performing at a private theater. Halfway through dinner, Linda turned to the girl with a smile that could have warmed the yard. "Chloe," she asked, voice unhurried, "what would you like for Christmas, sweetheart?" Chloe looked at her hands. The table waited. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a car door slammed. The sound folded in snow. Chloe lifted her face, eyes wet with reflection, and parted her lips. "Shoelaces," she said. The word landed like a bell. Not loud, true. Charlotte's fork paused midair. David blinked. Nathan sat perfectly still, a frozen comet. Sarah's heart kicked against her ribs, then steadied with awe. "Shoelaces," Linda repeated, not a question, just a soft acceptance. "What color?" Chloe swallowed. "Red." The second word was smaller, but it was a bridge. "Red it is," Linda said, as if she were being handed a sacred list, and had just found it holy. Her eyes glistened, but she kept smiling. "I always thought red looked happiest in winter." The rest of dinner held a glow. Words didn't tumble now. They nested. Chloe touched the fringe of the tablecloth. She tried a roll with jam and raised her eyebrows in cautious delight. Charlotte closed her eyes at the first taste of potatoes, like somebody remembering an old song. After dishes insisted on by David, delivered by Sarah and Nathan in comic teamwork, Sarah tugged on her coat and boots. "Come with me," she whispered to Chloe, "just out back. 2 minutes." They stepped into the crisp air. The yard kept a hush of its own, a different kind from the one in the dining room. A maple stood near the fence, its branches scribbling lines into the sky. Sarah knelt by the small wooden box at the base, lid weathered by years of summer storms and winter sleep. "This is my secret," she said, lifting the lid. Inside lay a small bracelet of pale blue thread and a coin from a summer fair. Both souvenirs from a friend who moved away before goodbyes were a skill. "I used to think if I left things here, the map of who I'd been would still exist." Chloe leaned in, eyes round as stars. "Here," Sarah said, pulling her own laces free from her boots, with fingers that trembled, not from cold. "You asked for red. I don't have them yet, but I have these. They'll do until we find our color." She threaded one lace through Chloe's boot, knotting it neatly, then the other, and looked up to see the girl, watching her with stunned attention, as if a magician had pulled a ribbon straight from her chest. Chloe touched the knot with 2 fingers, reverent. "I'll give them back," she said 3 words now, a constellation. You will, Sarah said softly. Or maybe you'll keep them and tie your world together with them. Both are allowed. Back inside, Linda pressed a tin of cookies into Charlotte's hands, some frosted, some plain, all imperfect with love. Nathan tried to hide a second candy cane in Chloe's pocket and failed. She caught him and held it up like evidence. He surrendered, grinning. David fetched coats. Thank you, Charlotte said at the door, voice thick. For the food, for everything. Come again, Linda said. You are always welcome. They left into a night dusted with new snow. Sarah stood with her hand on the doorknob a moment longer, thinking of the red in Chloe's voice when she said shoelaces, the smallness of the wish, the largeness of the meaning. She shut the door slowly, as if not to disturb something that had just settled into place. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mike. Heard about dinner. Hope it was good. Carly says hi. She drew a whole page of shoelaces. Don't ask. Sarah smiled. Ask her to save me one drawing. She typed back. I think we just made a new tradition. Before sleep, she replayed the moment. Linda's gentle question. Chloe's careful answer. The way a single word could build a bridge between four people and the cold outside. And for the first time in weeks, she slept as if the world, complicated as it was, might still choose to be kind. Snow blanketed the streets that December morning, thick and heavy, muffling the world in silence. Sarah's breath rose in clouds as she hurried down the familiar sidewalk towards Safe Haven. The shelter had become almost a second home to her, a place where the scent of soup simmering, the laughter of children, and Ruthie's steady voice gave her a strange sense of belonging. But when she pushed open the door, something felt wrong. The room was too quiet. Conversations were hushed, children moved slower than usual, and the corner where Chloe often sat was empty. The absence was louder than noise. Sarah's stomach dropped. She looked around, heart pounding, until her eyes locked on Ruthie. The woman stood near the office doorway, her usual calm expression shadowed with something heavier. Sarah crossed the room in a rush. Ruthie, where are they? Where's Charlotte? Where's Chloe? Ruthie exhaled, her breath trembling just slightly. Sarah, they've gone. The words slammed into her. Gone? What do you mean, gone? I was just here 2 days ago. The state arranged a relocation, Ruthie explained gently, her tone the kind one uses when delivering truth that cuts. Charlotte's sister came forward. They've been placed with her, in another city. It's a safe home. A stable one. This is good news. Sarah's head shook before her heart could catch up. No, not like this. They can't just leave without saying goodbye. They didn't want it to hurt more than it already would, Ruthie said softly. Charlotte thought it best not to prolong it for you, and for Chloe. Sarah's throat tightened. But Chloe was just starting to open up. She trusted me. She was talking again, at least to me. How can she just disappear? Ruthie touched her arm with quiet strength. Sometimes the kindest thing is also the hardest. Chloe will carry you with her, Sarah. That doesn't end just because she's gone. The words barely registered. Sarah stumbled back into the main room, her eyes scanning desperately for any sign of them. That's when she noticed a folded piece of paper on the table in Chloe's corner. Her name scrawled across it in uneven, childish letters. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. Inside was a Dronga Christmas tree, crooked but bright, with colorful shoelaces tied around the branches like garlands. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, 2 words stretched across the page. Thank you. Sarah's breath caught. Tears blurred her vision until the room melted away. She pressed the drawing to her chest, her sobs spilling out, unrestrained. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry here, not in front of everyone, but it was useless. She didn't notice Ben until he was standing beside her. For once, his usual smirk was gone, replaced by something sober. They left early this morning, he said quietly. Didn't want to make it harder. It's already hard, Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. I thought I had more time. Ben shifted awkwardly, scratching at his sleeve. Time doesn't always play fair. But listen, Chloe, that kid will never forget you. You did more for her than most people ever tried. Sarah shook her head, unable to speak. But deep inside, she knew he was right. Chloe had trusted her enough to leave this behind. A message. A gift. The first words she had written in years. Later, as Sarah walked home through the snow, she held the drawing inside her coat, close to her heart. Each step felt heavier, as if the cold pressed down from the sky itself. She thought of Paris, of all the things she had once believed mattered. And it all felt small, hollow, compared to the empty chair where Chloe should have been. At home, she shut her bedroom door and sat on her bed. She spread the paper out carefully, tracing the crooked lines of the shoelaces with her fingertips. She wished she could answer, send a letter back, tell Chloe how much she had changed her. But there was no address, no number, no way to reach her. It was a letter you couldn't answer. A knock sounded at her door. Sarah. It was her father's voice, gentle but firm. She wiped her eyes quickly. Come in. David stepped inside, his gaze falling immediately on the drawing. He sat beside her, not speaking at first, simply letting the silence stretch. Finally, he said, she left you something important. Sarah nodded, voice raw. I don't know why it hurts so much. I knew this was temporary. Ruthie even said most families don't stay long, but it feels like losing family. David placed a hand on her shoulder, because, in a way, you did. Sometimes people pass through our lives for only a short time, but they leave us with gifts we never expected. Chloe gave you hers. Sarah looked at the page again. The shoelaces looked almost alive, winding around the branches like threads holding the tree together. I don't know if I'll ever see her again, she whispered. Maybe you won't, David said softly, but that doesn't mean the bond disappears. You'll carry her with you, and she'll carry you too, wherever she is. Sarah swallowed hard, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She asked for shoelaces, Dad, just shoelaces. And I thought it was silly at first, but now, David's voice grew quiet. Now you see what she meant. It's not about what they are. It's about what they hold together. Sarah leaned against him, exhausted, the drawing clutched in her hand. She didn't know what the future would bring, whether she'd ever see Chloe again, whether her own family would truly be okay. But she knew this. She would never forget the little girl who asked for so little and, in doing so, gave her everything. That night, she tucked the drawing into her journal, pressing it between the pages like a fragile leaf. And as she drifted into sleep, one thought echoed in her mind. Some goodbyes come without warning. Some letters you can never answer, but both can change you forever. The morning of Christmas Eve arrived with a sky the color of pewter and the promise of more snow. Sarah woke to the hum of the heater and the soft clatter of pans downstairs. For a moment, she lay still, listening for the sound that had anchored her childhood. Her mother's singing in the kitchen only to find the house quiet, almost reverent. She slipped from bed, wrapped herself in her robe, and padded down the hallway to find her father standing at the counter, carefully arranging oranges and cinnamon sticks around a pot that steamed like a small volcano. You're up early, David said, his voice warm, though his eyes searched her face. Couldn't sleep? Sarah shook her head. I dreamt of shoelaces, she said, half a laugh, half a confession. Hundreds of them, like ribbons around a tree. He took a breath. We can go by the shelter later. I know you want to be there. I do, she said. But maybe I should help here first. Mom will want this to feel like Christmas, even if it's quiet. David opened his mouth to answer when the phone rang. He stared at it, hesitant, as if it might bring bad news with it. Sarah's heart took a sudden leap into her throat. He picked up on the third ring. David Clark, he said, then listened, and as seconds passed, something changed in his face. His shoulders loosened, his mouth trembled, his eyes shone. Yes, he said, breathless. Yes, thank you, thank you. He ended the call and turned to Sarah with a smile that broke open like light through clouds. It's gone, he whispered. Your mother's skin's clean. The doctor says she's cancer-free. For a beat, the world held its breath. The news seemed too big to fit in the room. Sarah's knees almost buckled, and then she was laughing and crying at once, thrown into her father's arms as relief tore through her like a tide. "Dad," she murmured against his shoulder. "Dad, oh my gosh." Linda appeared in the doorway, hair scarf tied loosely, face pale and astonished. "I heard the phone," she said, and then she saw their faces and understood. Her hand flew to her mouth. David crossed the kitchen in 2 strides and folded her into the hug. The 3 of them swaying like people who'd stepped off a storm-tossed boat and finally found ground. They spent the next hour in a soft bustle, Nathan barreling downstairs in a blur of flannel pajamas, demanding details and offering to taste test anything that resembled dessert. The house, which had felt fragile for months, carried a new kind of quiet, not the hush of worry, but the peace that follows a miracle. When they gathered in the living room to hang a few last ornaments, Linda reached into a small box and paused. "Do you remember these?" she asked. Sarah looked up. In her mother's hand were a pair of bright red shoelaces. Linda smiled at her daughter's surprise. "I found them in the hall last night," she said. "I thought maybe Nate dropped them, but he said they weren't his. I wondered if they were yours." Sarah took them gently. The laces felt like a story she already knew. She glanced at the window, at the street beyond. For a heartbeat, she imagined a small, quiet figure slipping up to their porch, tying something to the railing, then darting away. "Maybe they're a gift," she said softly, "for us to remember." They set the laces across a branch like a ribbon. The flash of red against green made the whole tree seem brighter. By late afternoon, the Clarks drove to Safe Haven, with a basket of cookies and a pot of Linda's slow cooker stew, an offering that felt like a prayer. The shelter pulsed with a gentle chaos of mittens, coats, and children darting under elbows. Volunteers moved with practiced grace. Ruthie stood by the door, receiving arrivals with hugs, scolding a teen for running, then turning to greet the Clarks with tears in her eyes the moment she saw Linda. "Don't you dare make me cry on Christmas Eve," Ruthie said, already dabbing at her cheeks. "You'll ruin my reputation." "You love your reputation," Linda answered, and they both laughed as they fell into each other's arms. Ben swept past, carrying a stack of plastic cups, like a juggler. "Look who's alive and bossy," he called, grinning. "Hi, Mrs. Clark. You look good, bossy," Ruthie said. "You're washing an extra sink for that." "Yes, ma'am," Ben said, unrepentant, and saluted Sarah as he vanished into the kitchen. Sarah couldn't help smiling. Even his sarcasm felt softer tonight. Mike appeared near the serving line, sleeves rolled up, hair damp from snow. He spotted Sarah and broke into a surprised smile. "You're here. Wouldn't miss it," she said, and realized she meant more than just tonight. They worked side by side for an hour, ladling stew, passing plates, laughing when Nathan asked for a quality-controlled taste of everything. Mike moved with the same easy care as always, but there was something new between them. A quiet thread of understanding pulled tight, holding without needing to be named. Between refills, he leaned toward Sarah. "Carly wanted me to tell you she liked your message." He nodded toward his jacket pocket. "The drawing you sent her through Ruthie. The one with the shoelace garland." Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. I just wanted her to know I was thinking of her. You were kind to her when others weren't," Mike said simply. "That doesn't get forgotten." Later, when the rush eased, Ruthie gathered everyone by the tree in the common room, a small forest of mismatched ornaments and handmade paper stars. "Before we sing," she said, though what followed was more of a heartfelt mumble than a song, "we have a new tradition to start this year." She nodded to Sarah. "Tell them." Sarah blinked, startled. Then she stepped forward, fingers warm with nerves, heart full. "It's simple," she began. "Shoelaces. They hold us together when everything else is coming apart. Somebody I love asked for shoelaces for Christmas, and it changed the way I see the world. So, if you want, Take a pear from this basket, or bring a pear to hang on the tree. For anyone starting over, for anyone brave enough to keep going. Silence fell soft, absorbing. Then a hand reached forward. A little boy tied a blue lace on a low branch. A woman added a pink one, hands trembling. Ben looped a neon green bow and pretended not to care, but his mouth twitched like he did. Linda tucked a plain white pear beside a paper star. David added sturdy brown ones, the kind that never break. And at last, Sarah tied a red lace she'd tucked in her pocket, the twin of the one on their home tree, and the highest bow she could reach. They didn't sing so much as breathe together, the room threaded with gratitude. Snow whispered against the windows. For the first time in months, Sarah felt the future open, not like a cliff she might fall from, but like a road she knew how to walk. When the night wound down, and the last cups were stacked, and the last coat sipped, Mike walked Sarah to the door. He hesitated, hands in his pockets. "So, Paris," he said, half teasing. "You still going?" Sarah looked past him at the gleaming street, at the world wrapped in quiet light. "One day," she said, "but not without the right people. Maybe when Mom's ready to fly." She smiled, sudden and bright. "Maybe I'll take Dad, so he can pretend he understands fashion." Mike laughed. "He'll nod and say interesting structure a lot." "Exactly." They stood there, not quite ready to say goodnight, both aware that something had shifted permanently. "Thank you," Mike said, "for seeing things other people don't." "Thank you," she echoed, "for helping me learn how." Back home, the house welcomed them with the gentle glow of the tree. They slipped off boots and coats and gathered in the living room, the four of them curling into the couch, like a puzzle that had finally found its missing pieces. David cleared his throat and pulled a small envelope from his pocket. "Before I forget," he said, handing it to Sarah, "this is yours." Her stomach flipped. She knew the weight of an airline ticket when she felt it. She turned it over in her hands, imagining runway lights and the first breath of foreign air on. Then she looked at her mother, who was smiling softly, eyes tired in the way joy often makes them. Sarah pressed the envelope back into David's palm. "Hold it for me," she said. "We'll go when Mom wants to walk Paris with us." Linda's mouth trembled. Nathan, who had been pretending not to listen, blurted, "Can I come too? I'll carry the bags and say bonjour wrong." Sarah laughed, pulling him into a headlock that turned into a hug. "You're coming, bag boy." They sat a while longer, sipping cocoa, telling small stories that felt like big ones. And just before midnight, Sarah rose, crossed to the tree, and touched the red shoelace ribboning one branch. She thought of Chloe's quiet thank you, of Charlotte's steady hands, of Ruthie's bossy kindness, of Ben's sly grin and unexpected loyalty, of Mike's laugh and Carly's sketchbook full of small, brave animals. She thought of the way love looked like help you didn't know you needed. She thought of the world she had almost missed because she wasn't looking. "Next year," she said softly, "we'll hang a dozen shoelaces." Nathan asked. "Shoelaces," she said. For every new start, outside, the snow kept writing its soft script across the street, and inside, the Clark family leaned together, warm, awake, and unafraid. And so, Sarah discovered what so many of us forget, that the greatest gifts are often the simplest ones. A pair of shoelaces, a quiet smile, a hand held in silence. These can change the shape of a life far more than glittering lights or promises of faraway cities. Christmas, she learned, isn't about what we receive, but about what we give, and the courage to see beyond ourselves. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this story. We're grateful to share these moments with you. If this tale touched your heart, please remember to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss the next story. We'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments a time when a small gesture or an unexpected gift changed your life. And when you're ready, take a look at another story here on our channel. Each one carries its own thread of hope, waiting for you to follow. This is Lasting Tales, where stories live on. weaving hearts together, one memory at a time.